just to let people fill in. But in the
Sure.
meantime, we can kind of just kind of hang out. It's always funny because like this part feels the most like Dragon Con, right? As you like open the doors for the panel and you wait for the people to like get settled. The panelists at the front are like, okay, what do
Yeah,
we
you're just
do
kind of
right
awkwardly
now?
sitting there on the stage, like, "Hi, we're on display. We're the exhibit. Please do not feed the animals." Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When I was doing improv, like at my college, while people were filling in, we would be like milling about in the crowd, like greeting people and stuff like that. And so our
Uh-huh.
first Dragon Con, that's what we did. Like we went out into the crowd and we're like talking to people, like, "Oh, thanks so much for coming out," like da da da, and then um like using it to gain a little bit of understanding of who our audience was before going up on stage. It made us a little less nervous. You know what I mean?
Is that a bad thing though? I actually think that's a cool way to do it. That's
I liked it.
one time I went to this stand-up comedy show here locally, and there was a national comic that was touring, and we went to do, actually, ironically, I think he was doing a live taping of his podcast was the whole thing. So we went, and that was the thing he did is before the show started, because there was only, it was like on a Thursday night, so, and it wasn't as full as I thought it would be. It was maybe like 30 people in the audience. He actually went around and talked to every table and like introduced himself, even though he's pretty well known and everybody kind of knew who he was, and was kind of like, hi, thanks for being here. And so, you know what? That might be the way to do it. Maybe we've
Yep.
been doing it wrong, just sitting up front, kind of waiting for like, hello, is this thing on? Hi, when are we starting? How many minutes? Yeah.
Yeah, it felt pretty cool. I felt bad for our volunteer who like had to kind of wrangle us, right? Like once the
Mm.
show was ready to start, he was kind of like, okay, like
Just have
be
them
on
blink the lights. Just have them.
be on stage now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
They have a big
But
screen. Can't they say something like, get your butt in the chair. We're getting ready to go.
but it was fun. It was a cool way to do it. It certainly brought the nerves down for us because this was our first Dragon Con.
Hmm.
We were like, what if no one shows up? And then people started showing up because it's Dragon Con, right? Like no matter what, you're gonna have somebody in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, it was fun. Recommended if you're looking for a way to kind of break that pre-show tension a little bit, Rob. As
No, I
though
think
as though I need to tell you anything though, because you are like you're a veteran of the podcast scene of Dragon Con, of kind of life at this point, right?
Wait, did you just call me old? Because they call me
No,
old. No, just kidding. It's
experienced,
fine.
experienced.
It's
It's too
funny that
early to trap me, Rob.
it's weird to think that I'm a veteran of Dragon Con, because I remember there was a long time when I was just hearing about it and I wasn't going, and it's just the time has flown by, and I'm at that point where I'm like, I kind of lost count of how many Dragon Cons I've been to. And do I count last year? I don't really think I get to count last year. I don't think last year wasn't really real. Like, everybody did the best they could. And, I think especially the content on the digital media track was on fire and everything was great, made the best of a bad situation. But I don't know if you can count last year, so I don't know if I count
Oh,
that Dragon Con.
I count the hell out of last year. Are you kidding?
Do you? No, I don't
Yeah,
know if
the
I
amount
do.
of work that everybody put into the quality of programming, like I learned a lot last year that I definitely wouldn't have learned if I wasn't hanging out with the digital media track
Yeah, no.
all
And
weekend.
I definitely don't like belittle any of that, but it's just like the whole like not actually being there in person and not getting to mingle with the cosplay on Friday and Saturday night and not having, the parade that you're trying to walk through to get from one panel to another. Like it's just like kind of like all of that stuff that I'm used to experiencing just kind of like wasn't there last year. So I'm like, I don't know if it counts as like a normal Dragon Con for me. And maybe it's something about like getting on the plane and going out there and the whole
Sure.
to do with that as well. So last year was just different.
Yeah.
Not that it was like bad by any means. No, you're right. Like there was a lot of great information, especially, again, what Digital Media Track was doing, and some of the other tracks with their own virtual content. But it just it kind of felt like a spin-off, maybe is a good
Yeah.
way to put it. It was like a spin-off.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
a
it
good
was yeah.
supplement too, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so Yeah, Kruggles in chat here says, I think also because we stayed up until 7 a.m. the last night made it feel a lot more real, right? Uh,
Yes. That
and
is
yeah,
that is the Dragon Con iconic behavior. You're right. And I missed out on that part. So
yeah, we ended up going out like just staying on Zoom calls with friends after all the panels, like talking
uh,
about what we had seen, and like everyone had been at home drinking, you know what I mean? And there was like we had set up our house a little bit to like replicate that experience. And so we had
uh,
a bunch of streamers and like stuff in the way
I okay.
between.
That's right. I remember seeing some of that stuff. You guys had like decorated like different parts of the house to like reflect like this is the Hyatt, this is the,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, no, that's super cute. I love that.
we hung
So
signs in our kitchen that just said Peachtree Center, you know, for like the food court. Like we tried to make it as real as possible.
but did you rent 50 people to come stand in the kitchen so you had no room to move and to create a line? Oh wait, you probably COVID wouldn't allow you to do that, huh?
Right, exactly. We've
Yeah.
got a decent sized house. We do not have enough room
Well,
for everybody to be 6 feet apart, you know.
I see a gigantic like stuffed elephant or something behind you, Mike.
Yeah.
So did you put that like you got to get all your stuffed animal friends in the kitchen maybe to make it a little more
Yeah,
authentic? Yeah.
exactly. We put them in the spaces where we were trying to walk, right? So between
Yeah.
the bedroom and the studio, there were like piles of things that you had to like squeeze between and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
We did it Dragon Con style as best we could, you know. Uh,
So it's interesting you kind of phrase it that way and kind of like those things that made last year a little more Dragon Con for you because like for me, my husband doesn't drink, so we don't have liquor at home. So it's maybe for me like that's why I'm like, oh, this whole destination thing and all that is kind of part of it for me because I can't necessarily do a lot of the same stuff here, so it's just kind of interesting. And plus my husband's never been to Dragon Con, although he's
oh,
thinking about going next year. He just recently got into streaming games. He does a lot of I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the big games they're streamed. He does a lot of Dead by Daylight, which is a big
okay.
which is a big competitive game that's streamed.
Yeah.
And so he streams a lot of that. And now he's kind of like getting into it and he's like, maybe I will go to Dragon Con next year. I'm like, yes, you should go to
Yeah.
Dragon Con. I've been telling
Let's
you to do this
go.
forever. He's
That's
been
the
to
way to do
Atlanta.
it.
He's been to Atlanta. He's been to Pulse Bar. He's been to those hotels. But we were there in like March or April, so for a wedding. So we weren't really there during Dragon Con. So it's kind of funny that he's like seen all these things, so he knows what I'm talking about, but he's never like been there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I
Yeah.
think there's like it's a thing, right? Like I've never been to Atlanta during not Dragon Con, so
Mhm.
I'm very nervous to like shatter the illusion. You know what I mean? In my mind, as an out of towner, all of those like cosplayers and all of the parties and all of the people are still there.
They're still
You know?
there. Yeah.
Yeah, like you still can't walk anywhere in Peachtree. Like you can't walk downtown without seeing a giant Gundam with like a 20-foot long sword. Like those are just permanent features of
Mhm.
Atlanta's downtown to me.
Mhm.
And I'm trying not to ruin that for myself. So if you are in chat, if you are watching this video on demand on YouTube, don't tell me that that's not true, please, and thank you. Like,
Well, you know what? Some parts of it, I don't know if you. So every year that I do Dragon Con, I get into town on Wednesday usually, and Thursday kind of ends up being the tourist day. Like technically, I know Dragon Con starts on Thursday now, but not usually until like the evening. And especially the first few years I was going, there really wasn't a lot going on Thursday, so Thursday was kind of always the tourist day. So that was always the day to go do the CNN Center or the World of Coke or any of that. And so those are kind of the same
all right,
even in
all
the
right.
off period. So like all the stuff around the hotels is still, you still got a pretty touristy part of Atlanta in that area. So it's that part is still relatively the same.
For everybody joining us, I am here today with Rob Roberts of Orange Lounge Radio, the Voice of Geeks Network, and a fantastic Twitter follow at Mr. Rob Roberts.
Oh, thank you.
Just kind of unrelated to the digital media work that you do, your Twitter presence is really fun. I like the content that you put out there, even though that is not the kind of focus of this conversation.
Well,
Definitely
thank
make
you.
sure to give them a follow. How are you today, Rob?
Good. And now that I'm waking up, I have my coffee. I'm sorry, it's like disturbing the green screen balance there. I don't know why. It's not a green mug, but whatever. Yeah, because so I'm on the West Coast. I'm based in California, Northern California. So it's what 7 a.m. just after here, so it's a little early, but that's okay. You know what? Today's kind of a big day in gaming, which if you don't know OLR, it's a video game based podcast, so we follow the gaming industry very closely. And today's kind of a big day because you have we have a big Microsoft event coming up in I think it's only about 3 hours. It's not. It's either 10 or 11. Of course, I'm horrible that I don't know exactly what time it is right now, but it's coming up pretty early this morning, and so there's a lot going on. Then there's like Square Enix, another company, so it's a big day. This E3 season is huge in gaming. So, but of course it's all weird this year because E3 is usually an in-person event, but obviously it's not so much this year.
Right.
It's based in Los Angeles, and California is still not completely reopened with all the COVID stuff going on. So. Still online.
And so is OLR covering E3 the same? Has it been different? Like how does that kind of affect the work that you do for your show? And how
For
have
us,
you kind of worked around it?
well, for us specifically, it's still kind of the same because we stopped going to the E3 show in person. I think the last year I went was 2014. So I'd gone to E3 in person a few years, and we would do like special shows. Like honestly, and I think we've all been there. We did the show where like I had a laptop and we had 2 laptop microphones and would record in the hotel room at night and try to push that out to the feed that night, like, about things that we saw at the show floor. But one reason we kind of stopped going to E3 and that big industry show because I think as that industry got more like, oh, we're going to just put our stuff directly on YouTube, we're going to put our stuff directly on Twitch, there's less and less motivation for people like me to be there live. Some people still love to go for the networking and things like that. But for networking, for me, I way prefer to spend my money on things like Dragon Con, where I'm networking with other creators, or like kind of like the smaller, medium-sized gaming shows, like the local stuff I think is much better for like the promotion networking for me. So I don't get as much out of E3 anymore. So honestly, we've kind of just been covering it like it's just a news headline, like anything else, for a while. But there's still something about the pomp and circumstance of the events, the press conferences, the Nintendo Directs, the designated times when things happen. That we're gonna do like a little co-stream over at VOG Network this morning. When the event happens. So they'll have the event going, and then Bobby and I are going to do like a live react, right? We love to watch the react stuff. So we're going to do some of that, and kind of like our impromptu thoughts and things. And one thing I really like to pride ourselves on is that we don't live in a world of negativity. Unfortunately, though the space of video gaming can be a very negative space sometimes, and we try not to be the everything sucks, this sucks, that sucks, it all sucks. Like we try very hard not to be part of that crowd. So I like to think like, oh, if you want something that's a little more positive, that's not to say we're not critical of the things we like, and have that criticism, but we try to have a little more positive outlook on things sometimes, and I think sometimes the gaming industry kind of lends itself to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of a like a takeaway just from knowing you and Bobby. From me is that like y'all make it okay to just be excited for things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to just be stoked that there's a new X, Y, or Z coming out, right?
I don't know if this is like a controversial viewpoint, but I'm gonna just say it. This is a safe place for me to just say it, right, Mike? So I'm gonna say it.
Always.
Video games are fun.
What? No.
Video games are
serious work, Rob.
Entertainment. It's an entertainment industry.
That's a lot of T's. And the T's stand for fun.
Well, I'm bringing the tea here to your show today, so.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like people people tend to get very worked up about things, which, I get passion, I get
Yeah.
desire to have
Yeah.
something match your expectations, right? But
Mhm.
I think you're right. I think it's so important to remember that, hey, y'all, this is supposed to be fun.
It's
I
right.
mean, we're talking
Right.
about a man who goes down a pipe and jumps on a mushroom. It's okay.
It's okay.
Doesn't have to be, you know.
If Nintendo goes another year and doesn't show Bayonetta 3, like, shock and awe, but your life is going to go on. Like, it's going to be okay. I'll be
Yes.
mad. I'll be a little upset. I'll have a I'll have a I'll shed a singular tear because I love Bayonetta too, but there has been this whole pandemic thing going on and it's just screwed everything up.
Yeah,
So,
there's other stuff
nothing's
going
coming out
on.
of time.
Right.
And
There's other stuff going on, and that's okay.
it's right. It's the same thing with movies. There's so many
Yes.
parallels with like gaming and movies and the other, parts of the entertainment industry. And it's just like, I don't know why people don't see it so easily sometimes, but it's like, movies get delayed, games get delayed, things happen.
Right. Is that lack of that perspective something that drove you to start Orange Lounge Radio? I know
Uh,
I'm asking kind of ancient
no,
history at this point, right? Because like, how long has your show been on?
we started. So, June 23rd, 2002 was the first episode of Orange Lounge Radio.
Rob, that was
And so
22 days
nine,
after I graduated high school.
okay, please never say that again. No, just kidding. No. It's so, oh my gosh. Once in a while we'll get that email and it's like, we just got one of these like a couple weeks ago and it was like, I've been listening to OLR since I was 15 years old. And I'm like, okay, first stop the email. First off, who was letting you listen to this show? Because this is a show for adults. You should have been listening at 15 years old. But all right. So, and they're like, and now I'm married and I have children. I'm in my 30s. And I'm just like, stop the email. I don't want to hear. No, no, but that's like
amazing.
Yeah,
That's
even
incredible.
even though on one hand you want to be like, I hate this, you really don't, because you're just like,
No.
that's a long time to be following anything, or even not even like people that have been following consistently the whole time, but it's like I was listening back in the day and then like I was just randomly looking one day and I saw you guys are still going and it's like, yep, still here. But anyway, I danced completely around the original question. So you're asking, like, did the show start out of a need for that kind of like positivity? I think no, because our show had an interesting path. So my honest answer, no, it didn't start because of that. We started because so myself. So it's not just myself on the show, but it's I know a lot of Dragon Con people think the show is me and Bobby because those are the two people that you see at Dragon Con, but that's actually not the case. So we have completely separate shows. Bobby does his own show on Sunday nights, and then right before us, and then Orange Lounge Radio is myself, Dark Sakura or Jamie, and then Matt. So and I've been trying for years to get them to come out to Dragon Con, but Matt has a kid that's about as old as the first year that I went to Dragon Con, so it's kind of hard for him to get away.
Sure.
And Dark Sakura just hasn't, with her job and everything, it's hard, but she's actually trying to make 2022 work. She thought this year was a little soon with everything going on, even if Dragon Con's going to be in person. So I think she's trying for 2022. So maybe. But it's the three of us, and we all met playing, get this, we all met playing Dance Dance Revolution.
Okay.
At the arcade. So that's actually where the name Orange Lounge Radio comes from. Orange Lounge is one of the bands in DDR. Like when you're going through and picking the songs. Mm-hmm. So kind of in the way that like a Beatles tribute band might name themselves Yellow Submarine, when we were going through trying to figure out what do we want to name this show, we like the idea Orange Lounge because A, it's a band that's in the game. B, it kind of invokes that, it's like we're sitting around, we're talking, about this community that we love. So OLR really started about the Dance Dance Revolution and the music game scene. So if you go back to the early episodes, we were talking about things like, there's an upcoming tournament in the Bay Area. We did a live broadcast from Pier 39 of a big DDR tournament that happened out there in San Francisco early on. So we were really focused on that scene. We liked all video games, of course, and there would always be tangents about, this is what we're playing on Dreamcast or PlayStation 2, because that's how old the show is, right? So, there'd be those little tangents and things, but for the most part, we kind of pitched ourselves as a DDR and music game community based show. And so it wasn't until a few years later when the makers of DDR, Konami, kind of stopped making it. Like there was quite a period of time between, and for those that follow the series, there was Dance Dance Revolution Extreme and Supernova. There's a big gap between those two releases. So we didn't really have a lot to talk about. And so then this podcasting thing started showing up. So
I was going to say, you almost have two options then, right? It's like, do we do something different or just stop the show? And that option is terrible, right? Like that's so sad.
And that's kind of what happened is we ended up kind of like between the two. So what we did, we were like, okay, so we're gonna do our usual show that we do, and then we want to do like a show that like this podcast thing we've been reading about. This is before iTunes. But we thought we would do like a 20-30 minute to go edition of our show that was about all video games. And so we started doing that as like our podcast. And so what happened? We're doing our live show. We have a certain amount of listeners for that. And we have our podcast. And the first few episodes don't get a lot of downloads, but then there's a few more. And then Apple launches podcasts within iTunes. And because they pulled from some very early directories that we happen to be in, we were one of the first shows about video games in iTunes.
That's awesome.
The downloads go through the roof. And so we're kind of like, wait a minute, our spin-off show is now like the bigger show.
Right.
So we long story short, sorry.
This is great.
We had a conversation about what do we do? Like, we're kind of running out of steam for this show that we do like 2-3 hours. And, the co-hosts were kind of like, okay, we're doing a 3-hour show about games. And now this spin-off show is starting to be an hour, 90 minutes. Like we're not even going home until 10:30. So finally we're like, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to merge the two shows together. We're going to have a live show about all video games because there's just not enough of the music stuff to substantiate it anymore. And we're going to put it out as a podcast. And so we fused it all together. And that was probably about 130, 140 episodes in. We married the two formats together. And so that has been OLR ever since. But that's also kind of what's allowed us to be like, we're the longest running video game podcast because we got to kind of cheat and get an early start.
I don't think it's cheating to like.
I don't either.
To like.
Some of the other long-running podcasts might disagree, but I don't see it as cheating either.
No way. I think there are very few shows that can do the same thing every day forever, right?
Right.
And it sounds to me from the outside like Orange Lounge Radio always had this kind of like core concept, right? And even though there was a pivot, it stayed within that core concept.
Absolutely.
It stayed within, and like you and I know this, but maybe the listeners at home, you're considering starting a show. There are going to be people who listen to your podcast that don't care about your content and they just care about you as a creator. And so they're going to listen to whatever you have to say, no matter what you're saying, because they like your personality. And so if your hosts stay the same the whole time, right? I think that's okay. Right. Sorry. My dog has allergies.
No, you're fine. I had the cat screaming out in the hall and I'm sure it was getting picked up. So you know what? Animals happen. So it's all good.
I've never seen him sneeze this much this early in the morning. Usually it's like a mid-afternoon kind of thing. Like once the air starts to kind of pick up. Sweet baby. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Pets are great.
But yeah, like it's not about us or the show. or the content. It's like a mix of all of them, right?
Well,
And
I was
so
actually going to go with on the bit that like it is about us a little bit because, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why because so we do a 3 hour show, which also surprises a lot of content creators. Well, ish, we do like 2.5, 3 hours. We kind of go as long as the content necessitates it. And you know how it is in podcasting. Everybody is always like, you need to do an hour. An hour is the show. An hour is the podcast. That's an hour. But it's kind of like, well, but that's not the show we created because
right,
in 2002 when we were making a show, we weren't inspired by these set of norms. We were inspired by traditional radio broadcasts or like
drive
Sirius
time or
XM type of
whatever.
stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. The old OLRs, we had music breaks and did all that
Oh,
for,
cool.
yeah, so for like 3 hours. So because we were on like Live 365 was where we started. I don't even know if people know what that is anymore, but they would pay well, you're paying them, but then in turn they're paying the royalties so you can play music and all that good stuff. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
anyway, my point with all that is that so we have like 3 hours to play with, but even then sometimes we'll get on a tangent about something that's only like even in small part about video games, and now it's about like some restaurant that we went to in the area this week or whatever, and it's like a 20-minute tangent, and I'm like apologizing. I'm like, hold on, we need to get back to games because like, but then like the listeners kind of also kind of ground me a little bit, or like, no, you're that's the fun stuff, like,
Right.
you can read video game headlines on news websites, but this is the stuff we love and consume, and that's always okay. That's the part that has to keep me grounded, is that
Yeah.
tangents are actually kind of fun and what makes you a little bit different.
It's finding that mix, right? Because like
Yes,
all
yes.
the ingredients go into your digital media bucket here, and
Hmm.
how you stir them up and how you present them, right,
Hmm.
is what the folks are gonna like. And so like it's
Yes.
not just one thing or the other. It's everything together.
Yeah.
That's like yeah, that's the sauce, right? That's the secret. Is that Is that something y'all are conscious of on the VOG network in general? Because I know you've got a few shows on the network, right?
Hmm.
Between the Bobby Black Wolf show and Orange Lounge Radio, and the other things that are going on the network. Do y'all think about that mixture of like the shows, or is that just kind of a natural?
The mixture of the show, separate shows together, or the mixture of like
Yeah, like
what goes into
as a network, right? Do you think about kind of the package?
that was definitely like a lot of the early thoughts about kind of like forming the network and getting into that was that different shows could kind of have their different areas of expertise. So for example, we have another show on the network, Anime Jam Session. So let's say there's a video game coming out that's very heavily rooted in anime, or something like that. Like it would be kind of like the let's go talk to that show and have them on to talk about how this kind of relates to anime on our broadcasts and things, and kind of like share in that regard. And actually the host of that one of the hosts of that show, Rama, is like a super active participant in OLR, and I've always been huge on getting the voice of our live audience, getting the voice of live callers when we were able to do that before the pandemic and all this stuff, like get that in there, because quite honestly, and there's so much going on in the game industry. I can't confess to know everything going on. So sometimes
Right.
I have to kind of reach out to chat and be like, have y'all heard about this? What's the latest on this? And like, I, and then you get that instant like live feedback and the live stuff, whether it's coming from like an expert in another area on one of the other shows or what have you, or just another listener who just happens to really play this part of the game. But I think like definitely a common theme between the different shows on the Voice of Geeks network. It's in the name there, right? We want to get those different voices. We want to get those diverse opinions and thoughts, out on the air, and really interact with our audience and let them drive the show.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I really appreciate about Voice of Geeks when we were starting to form our podcast network is like, what is the unifying thread, right? Like
Mhm.
if I look at our network, I see three very different shows. What ties them all together, right? Not just the hosts, not just the people that are making the show, but what is the kind of central like core mechanic, right?
Right.
That defines this in the same way that like a Capcom, a Capcom fighter is going to feel like a Capcom fighter no matter who the characters are, right?
Right.
What is that for the stuff that we do?
And I tell this to new creators a lot and people that are going to launch their own podcast or whatever. I think of it as what is your movie poster line, right? What is that little tagline that goes on the movie poster that tells people like what your show is really about? And please don't say, am I allowed to swear on here? Or is this, I have to keep it G-rated?
Let's
okay.
do PG.
I'll beat myself. Okay. So let's say, I always say, if the concept for your show is 3 guys sit around and talk beep about video games, I'm always like, please don't do that show. Please do not do that show. Don't do that show. Because if your big tagline is that we're going to sit around and talk beep about video games, like you really need to analyze, are you a fan of video games or are you a fan of talking beep?
Right. Exactly. Because like, yes, there's a place for talking that smack, right? And there are a lot of shows that are just people talking smack.
Right.
And if that's the show that you want to do, you've got a lot of space to go with that, right? Like,
right. I don't want to hear beep. Like you're literally advertising that your show is beep, and I don't want to hear that. But you know, once you really sit down and kind of like take a look, okay, wait a minute, let's get back past that. What are we really about? I think you really do build like a stronger theme for your show when you kind of and I think the absolute same thing is true with a network. What's that common thread? Luckily, you don't have as many people saying, you know, we're a network of shows that just talk beep.
Yeah, talk. Trash is the word.
Trash, yes, good.
Rob's not allowed to say trash in California now, but here in Texas, I can say whatever word I want. And
I think I'm allowed to say trash. I think that's a yeah.
He said it. Oh no.
Oh, hold on. I think the police are at the door.
But no, it's true, right? That like there's an intentionality with creating something that lasts, right? And I don't know that necessarily you need to have that intentionality when you start, but you definitely need it to keep going, right?
Right.
And that was something that we learned with with one of our shows where like we started it as a bit. It was really like a podcast chicken is what we like to call it, where like my co-host was basically daring me to keep going, and I was daring him to keep going, and that's not super sustainable, Rob. I don't know if you knew that, but doing a show out of spite, not a great start. But then we found a through line, and we found a thing that we wanted to tell. Like we found a story that we wanted to tell, and that made it so much easier.
You know, in some ways that isn't necessarily a bad way of doing it. I don't know about the whole being motivated by spite, but you did what you had to do to establish that regularity and making the podcast. And I think that's the hardest part, because I've met so many people that want to start their own show, and they're so fixated in asking me about things like equipment. And it's like, okay, well, I can't start my show until I have the right microphone. I can't start my show until I have the right, a mixing board. I can't, and all this stuff. And I think a lot of people get really hung up on that stuff. And that's great. I understand. Yes, of course, you want to have all those nice things, but the much harder part of podcasting is actually making it a routine and making it a part of what you're doing every week and all of that. I would say you just need to get in there and record, even if you're using your phone to record something and you're just recording a show about your week, your day. At least you're learning how to appreciate the sound of your own voice, whether you like it or not. You're learning about how to kind of create content, how to keep a story going and so forth. You're learning how to not sit there and go, I got in the car and you're learning about all that type of stuff. And in my opinion, that stuff is way more important than having the right microphone to do the show. Because if you don't establish your regularity, if you don't establish your pattern of doing it, you're going to have just wasted like $500 on all this equipment that you don't end up using. Sad.
Rob, so I've got 2 thoughts on that, Rob.
Yeah.
My first thought is, if we tell everyone that, I won't be able to buy as cheap used equipment on Reverb. And so maybe we keep that like a secret.
Okay, we'll keep it between us. Sorry, you weren't
You know what I mean?
broadcasting that part.
Right. No.
Yeah.
We'll go through the video and scrub that
Yeah,
all
dump
out.
it.
No,
Dump it.
right. But like honestly, I started our show with a video game headset mic that we were recording through Skype. And then after 20 episodes, I bought a Snowball microphone. It was like a $50 USB microphone. Um, I have since stepped up to a Heil PR40 and an interface, and all the bells and whistles and everything. But that's what we started with because we wanted to make sure, like you were saying, kind of what is the base level. Like, am I going to be interested enough to keep doing this?
Right.
What did y'all start your show with? Because this was
It
kind of a
was
different
a
world, right?
disaster in the beginning. It was a disaster. I don't know how we kept it going. No, I think I might have had a nice hand mic that I used, like a karaoke machine microphone that I might have been using. I believe Jamie on the first episode was using a call center microphone thing on her headset. Yeah, exactly. I think she was using that. And then we had like a guest microphone that was like this $10 Radio Shack thing that I think was literally an exposed wire in a plastic shell. And it sounded like somebody was coming through 2 Dixie cups with a string. It was a horrible sound. But at the same time, this was 2002, Mike. So our station on Live 365 was dial-up friendly radio. So
Sure.
the output of what was coming through was also tin can garbage. But dang it, it worked. It was stereo sound and 56 kbps on your modem. Yeah,
would have taken me all day to download that on my 28.8 connection back in the day.
It's so wild to think that our show started as a modem friendly show that you could tune into on a dial-up connection. Like, that's just wild to me now.
That's
like,
so
nothing
fun.
ages my show faster than that, honestly.
But also it helps you keep perspective on that, right? Like, technology is constantly going to be changing.
Oh yeah.
But the content and the people and the reason people stay seems pretty consistent over the years. Right? Like, I think that's true from listening to Car Talk when I was, 14 or whatever, driving around on NPR on Sunday mornings. Like, I would get in the car on purpose, not to go anywhere, but to listen to the show. And like, I'm not a mechanic. The show isn't, required listening for my job or anything, but the hosts had such a great rapport with each other, and it was so funny that I was chasing it down as a kid, right? And that's still true today of a lot of the shows that I listen to. They have no professional bearing for me, right? But I'm not going to miss them. And so, like, whether they're recording out of, the microphone that comes with the Hewlett Packard Windows 95, kind of that gray single point microphone that looks a little bit like this.
I think that's the guest mic that I was trying to describe earlier. Yeah, it was horrible.
Whether it's that or it's an RE20 or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. As long as the show has that pull, right? Rob, this is a Dragon Con related interview, I guess. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the way Dragon Con has changed since you started coming. I'm a very relative newcomer to Dragon Con. 2019 was my first year. And so what are the things that you've noticed that have made Dragon Con more Dragon Con-y since you started?
Well, there's been more people, that's for sure. Like it's gotten more and more, like I think more and more people are coming. I'm surprised they can still fit it in the hotels. But yeah, I think my first year, I think like I'm at that point where I lost count, Mike. I think my first year was 2012 because that was the
Okay.
year we started VOG, and I think that was the first year we actually like we had like a panel on the, and that was the whole thing that kind of got me out to Dragon Con. Because Bobby Blackwolf had been trying to get me to come out to Dragon Con for quite a while. Because well, it's in, and he's in the Atlanta area, so it's always
Right.
been like his home, like
He's
stomping
a
grounds.
local.
Exactly. And so, and I was always kind of like, okay, yeah, it's your local con. You're really proud of it. Cute. You know, that type of thing. I didn't realize like what a big deal it was. But
Right.
then, yeah. And then, because I'm in California, keep that in mind. So, you know, the people always like, is that like Comic-Con, you know, and things like
Right.
that. And, you know, which
San
is, you know,
Diego is like,
exactly. Yeah. So so no, but then he was able to swing and like got like a panel for some of us on the Voice of Geeks Network that first year in 2012. And so we got to do a panel, and that kind of like was my thing to like get me out there. And then I saw what the con was really all about. And what I loved about it was that there was just like, it's like the whole like there's 20 conventions going on at once, basically. That's kind of like what
right.
Dragon Con is, right? With all the different tracks. So like not only is there a podcasting convention, because that was the old name of the track, right? So
Yeah.
I'm talking my first year. Not only is there a podcasting convention, but there's a Star Wars convention going on. There's a Star Trek convention going on. There's a video game convention going on. There's like all this stuff going on. And I think that's what makes it so cool. And I really think like over the years, a lot of that has just continued to grow. And a lot of the different tracks are getting bigger and bigger, especially video gaming. Because I do like the last year I was at Dragon Con, I was hosting some panels for, because I have to remember we didn't do anything last year. I don't think video gaming track did anything really last year. They might have done a couple on-demand panels, but it wasn't quite the big size. But in 2019, I was lucky enough to host some of their panels on their track too. They've grown a lot from what I remember in 2012, because I remember Bobby telling me in the beginning, this is not a video game convention. Don't go thinking it's well, because I used to go Labor Day weekend was PAX weekend, Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's kind of like what I associate with. And Bobby's like, no, it's not that. But over the years, the video gaming stuff has really blown up. So
Yeah,
if
I
you
was
didn't
gonna
start,
say 2019. I was amazed at the content in the video game.
yeah,
Like
with the whole
track.
arcade that they have
Yeah.
now, that wasn't there before.
Okay.
And all that, yeah, no, that was it was always just dedicated to board gaming. Well, and that wasn't in the dedicated space, the America Mart. It wasn't there either. It was all in the it was where the digital media track is now. It was all the basement of the Hilton, was all that stuff. And then they completely changed that. So it's been neat to see how some of the tracks have like changed, grown, you know, metamorphosized, like kind of like, you know, podcasting changed to digital media, which I think has been a great thing. And all that, you know, it's interesting to see the growth of all the independent cons. It's kind of like what I think about it, and then like how that's tied into just making the main convention even bigger. But you know, do you think this year's going to be a weird year? I know you're the one that's supposed to be interviewing, but you know what? I have questions too. Do you think this year's going to be kind of a weird year? Because I kind of keep thinking like the main part of it is going to be weird this year. Like I just don't see the like I kind of think digital media and the panel stuff, I don't think that's going to be much different. And that's cool because that's like a big motivating reason why I go to Dragon Con. But like I don't know if I see myself going to like Pulse Bar on Saturday night this year. That's going to be a little much, you know? You think it's going to be weird this year?
I think first off, I think that's a great question. Second, off air just before we went live, we were talking. I went to the first concert like that I've been to since last night. And as I was standing there with some friends of mine that I hadn't seen since last March, we were all saying, this is pretty weird, right? Like we were looking around, like, because we've all been vaccinated, right? We all did the thing that we needed to do to make it safe to be there. You know, the science says it's okay now.
Yeah.
But like we're all standing there like, this is a little hairy, you know, like we're like, there's like a nervous energy right now. So I personally I'm trying to do as much of this like step out of my comfort zone of the past, 16 months,
Yeah.
18 months, however long it's been, 40,000 years, right? Of like, get out and see the things and do the things that I'm supposed to be able to do, to learn and make it so that Dragon Con can be as close to normal, as it can be. But I do think
Yeah.
you're right. I think there's going to be a big portion of people that are like not ready for it yet, or like maybe this is their kind of first time back out
Yeah.
in society, right? And so I think there's gonna be a little bit of hesitation. Definitely the like Friday, I think will be very strange for folks. I'm hoping, because what I found last night is by the second or third band, I was feeling like I could move. I was feeling a little bit dancier. Like I
How many
didn't.
drinks were you in though at that point?
So I will say, I had been to the bar a couple of times,
Okay.
by that
Okay.
point. I will also say I haven't drank alcohol since I was 16, but I also am the one in my friend group that is like, you probably need a drink. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm
I
that
gotcha. I
one, like,
gotcha.
meet me on my level, which like for most people is 2 or 3 drinks later. Uh, and so I'm the one encouraging people to kind of get out and feel it a little bit more. But yeah, like it took me a couple of bands, and normally I'm the guy that like for the opener, like the trying to make them feel like they are rock stars, right? Like I'm usually up there going nuts for the very first band, very first song if I can be. Um, just because that's the feeling that I would want to have if I were playing a show, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the feeling that I would want to have if I were a DJ. I would want everybody to like be feeling it, and so I try to encourage that as much as I can. But
Yeah.
I didn't get in the pit. I didn't like mix it up a little. Like I didn't get rowdy, because I was still getting my feet under me. I
Yeah.
think a couple of shows from now, I'll probably be feeling pretty good. And so by the time Dragon Con rolls around, I think I will feel ready.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think,
I
yeah, and I'm not trying to be like doom and gloom or anything. I think, I think it's that way for a lot of people. It's just kind of like it's more going to be like that weird like awkwardness in the beginning. Like I'm going to be excited to see
Yeah,
people, and like I said, I think especially things like digital media track and the other panel stuff, I don't really see that being much different. I think that part is going to be like the grounding thing
yeah,
that is like ties us back to the previous years. I really see kind of that. But I think there is going to be that sense of like, hi, Mike, how do we Dragon Con? How does
right. Yeah,
how does
is
that
it
part
handshakes? Is
work?
it fist
Yeah,
bumps? Is it
what
elbows? What
what
are we doing?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
Should
will. I'm gonna wear a little name tag that says "Open for Hugs," because I just want everyone to know that
have you
I'm
heard of that thing with like the bracelets and the different colors were like
yes,
green, okay to hug, yellow, ask me first, red, do not touch, those types of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So,
I
but
do
at least
think
Dragon Con won't be the first convention coming back, so that's
right.
at least that,
I
yeah.
think with some of the other conventions, being kind of first, and like with the world the way that it is, it might feel like a kind of older Dragon Con, right? It might
Yeah,
not feel like a 2017, 2018, 2019 Dragon Con where like
right.
increasingly, massive crowds.
I think the attendance is going to dip, but I don't think it's going to be like a crap. Like I think it's going to dip to like 2014 numbers. It's not going to be like a
Right.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it'll only be, 65 or 70 instead of 85,
exactly,
90, right? Like,
exactly.
uh, but I think folks that have gone every year, are going to notice. Ice Cream
Mhm.
Assassin in chat here says, I think about 75% attendance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
that
and
feels.
we were sorry, we were talking about E3 earlier, and E3 went through a similar thing, not because of the pandemic, but they were going up and up and up and up, and literally it was at the point where E3 was, we have too many people, and they did a drastic thing where they did like a show at like an airport or something for like a couple years, and it was really hard to get in there, and then they kind of, so they dipped down, and then they had to kind of build back up, and then they decided to go back to the LA Convention Center and build back up. And the reason why I say that is that E3 didn't lose any of its relevance or any of its prestige in the industry because they had a little bit of a dip and had to build back up. And I think the absolute same is true for Dragon Con. Dragon Con is always going to be Dragon Con and, you know, have a name for itself in that regard. So even if the numbers do go 75% or whatever they are this year, it's still going to be Dragon Con, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, for us, like in the panels and doing the things, I think you're right. I don't think we're going to notice like when we are working the con, right? I don't think it's going to change anything. I'm just as hyped to give a, you know, to do a panel, to give a performance at, you know, a room of 8 people, as I am at a room packed to the gills with, you know, 150 or whatever.
Same. Yeah.
Because that's how we started our show. Was we had like 4 listeners for our first little bit, and we were so excited.
Yeah, that's 4 people who care,
right? And then, like, as that number grew, it hasn't like diminished our excitement about those 4, right? We're so fortunate. One of them joined our Discord when we finally launched it, and I was like, "Yeah, I've been listening since week 1," and like, behind the scenes, we were freaking out. We were like, "Oh my God, that's our first listener. Holy cow. I can't believe they're here." Like, it almost became like a reverse, like we were fanning about the fan, right? You know what I mean? Have you had a situation like that where like,
I was about to say our first show had 12 listeners because, well, at least, you know, live that I know of, because we advertised a lot on DDR Freak for that first episode. There's a website and all that stuff. So we had 12 on our first show.
Dang,
so
okay.
yeah, but there is one individual I know of that still listens today. Shout out Dark Tetsuya. I know you're out there, and he was listening in episode 1 and still listens today.
That's so awesome.
No, it is awesome. He's been a huge support of the show, and he's part of the family, honestly. Like, we've always kind of described the show as, you know, we used to go to Golfland and play DDR, and then we would go to the diner that was, you know, in the parking lot, and we would sit around, order mozzarella sticks, and just talk about the games we love and talk beep about video games. No, we would talk about the, you know, games that we love and what got us excited and those types of things. And we wanted to create a show where you can come have a seat at the table. So somebody like Dark Tetsuya has been there since day 1, you know, and he has like a permit. He has the seat with his name engraved in it at this point.
Yeah. That's so cool. Because I was looking at chat here, and somebody SSJ 100 Matt said, "I've been listening to OLR for 10 plus years."
I know that name. Hey Matt. Yeah, no, he's been listening a lot. He's been listening since the DDR years, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, we have we're very thankful to have fans that have stuck with us for a long time. It's a weird feeling, but at the same time, you know, it's weird. I've described it, Mike. It's like church. I don't want to sound sacrilegious or anything, or that like we're like, you know, like prophets. That's not what we do. But you know how like it's a
Church
group of
Mr.
people.
Rob Roberts. You heard it here, folks.
It's a group of people that get together with common interests on like a Sunday night to like, and it like they've made it.
Fellowship.
We're lucky. Yeah, a fellowship. I like that. That is a great way to put it. We're just not looking for rings. But we all have like this common interest and have made it a part of our week. People ask like, how does OLR keep going all these years later? And I say, because I don't know what the heck to do with my Sunday nights if we stop.
Right. Yeah. It's like
I might actually have to go to church because I don't know what I do.
It becomes so baked into like who we are, right? If the show fits, I feel like that's how you know, right? If the show fits, you know that's you're doing the right thing.
but that's an honor that somebody like Matt or anybody out there would make our show a part of their routine. And it's
Right.
not just the Sunday night crowd, because I know there are people that never come to the live show. They can't make it for whatever reason. Or I think one thing I've learned, it's not that they don't want to come to the Sunday night show, it's that they have baked OLR into their, this is my Monday morning listening at my job on my AirPods while I type and do my job, and that is
Right.
my OLR time. If I come on Sunday night, I'm going to take that Monday time away. And it's taken me a little while to like learn that, but I think that's why, you know, even though we kind of beg and plead like show up on Sunday, it's just like some people, OLR's routine is a different time of the week for them. And I'm still happy that anybody would dedicate 3 hours to us. So it's pretty awesome.
100%. Like, I don't know if y'all had this problem or like had this problem is the wrong word for it, because like, let's get real. We're talking about, you know, making a show for fun. But like, once pandemic kind of limited the amount of travel to and from work that people were doing, we saw a pretty substantial like shift in our numbers as far as like weekly downloads and stuff are concerned. But then like seeing these old episodes start to get picked up in the podcatcher as like people are starting to go back to work is like a really interesting kind of feeling, right? Like, oh, we were drive time radio for people is like a really cool realization to have, right? Like we were talking about earlier, where like that was the inspiration for your
That's
show.
what we wanted to be. Yeah.
Like,
so like, yeah, there's people that listen to us on transit. Do you want to know something about me that's really weird? And like, I think a lot of people in Digital Media Track would think I am weird, crazy.
yes.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm almost ashamed to admit it, but it's like a weird fact. I don't know how many people are listening to OLR. I don't look at the numbers. I really, truly, and you know, there's people that probably, you just say that. You don't, no, I don't know how many people are listening to OLR. I don't know how many downloads we have. I don't care. I know how many are watching. I know how many are watching live. You know, Twitch makes that very easy to see. My little thing tells me. So I know that. And that's kind of like my gauge of, you know, oh, we're having a good week. Oh, we're having not so good week. I don't know how many people. I have a pretty good guess. I think I inadvertently went in because I was looking at something else. And I kind of saw the downloads. Like I think last time I was in there was maybe like 8 months ago. So yeah, so I have an idea, but I don't know.
Sure.
So isn't it because people always wonder how many people listen to your show? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I have a guess.
And I think that's so healthy.
Well, and
here's somebody on like the flip side of it, right? Who's like, oh, is there, what can we do to drive? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, don't just do the show.
Here's another realization too. And this might be hard for some people to hear. Just because they're downloading it doesn't mean they're listening to it.
Right. Yep. Some of the
I wonder how many. I wonder, and honestly, when I do look at the download numbers, there's that pessimist in me that's like, how many of those people subscribed on iTunes back in like 2006 and like stopped listening 10 years ago?
Right. You just don't know how to,
and they just don't. They're too late. Yeah, they have unlimited bandwidth. They don't know how to unsubscribe, or they just, you know, whatever. They don't care, or they're like, I'll listen to it someday, but then they, you know, listen to, you know, Giant Bomb or one of those huge video game podcasts instead. You know.
Yeah, no, I have those same pessimistic thoughts, but my like flip on that is, I don't care. I don't care how many people just download it and don't listen. If anybody is watching and wants to download and not listen to my show, I will give you the links all the time. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I would much rather they listen. Obviously, I think we would have more fun if they did. But also, do you ever get that feeling like I spend so much time on my own shows that I don't have enough time to dedicate to the other shows that I like, that I want to support, and so I'm just going to subscribe and download them?
especially with, I don't know so much with podcasts. Like I do feel like I wish I had more time to listen to more podcasts. Like there's just, I can't even keep up with all the shows that are on, VOG. Actually, we don't have a lot of shows on VOG Network right now. We're kind of, with the pandemic and everything that's happened, we had a lot of shows that pod faded in the last 2 years, not just because of the pandemic, but just it was kind of like when it rained, it poured type of situation. And I think
what
the pandemic,
was the word you just said? Sorry.
When it rains,
pod faded?
Pod faded. Yeah. You never heard that?
No.
Yeah. Pod faded. When you're done, when it just
when it drifts away instead of having an ending.
When the feed that you subscribed to 10 years ago just stops updating. Yeah. You never heard that. Oh, I thought that was like a commonly known. Yeah. Pod faded. So sometimes, it'll be that, or whatever. So, and because the pandemic, we haven't really been able to backfill, I think is the thing. We're not able to get out there and network, meet new people, say, hey, have you thought about ... and all that. What got me on this tangent in the first place? We were talking about, listening to shows. So, and that also goes for just other shows I enjoy and so forth. But the real bad one is live streaming, especially that more and more people are getting into it because of the pandemic. I have both my co-hosts are getting into streaming on their own channel now. Dark Sakura plays a lot of Dead by Daylight, and like she does other things, like she's been streaming like Fantasian. Loki is really starting to really pour his heart and soul into his Minecraft YouTube, and he has a big collab coming up on the Minecraft thing. Yeah, which is really exciting, which is cool. And then I'm here. But I do streaming. I stream Final Fantasy 14 stuff on my own channel. I don't have time to watch everybody's streams. Right. And I always feel bad. And then like everybody's, and Jamie and I were just having a conversation about this the other day. Is she's like, well, I don't want to like stream when such and such is streaming. And I'm like, you've got to get out of that mindset, because I had to get out of that mindset too, is that being nervous about stepping on somebody's toes because I'm streaming at the same time as them. Everybody's streaming now. Right. Like you're going to be streaming at the same time as somebody else. Here's what you can hope for. And this is what I try to do. Hope that, somebody that's watching Twitch is going to channel surf, and they're going to flip between you, your friend, this other person that you enjoy and promote and so forth. I'm happy to be a channel surf destination. I'm happy to be that rerun of 70s Match Game that somebody watches because Charles Nelson Riley is hilarious for like 15 minutes before flipping the channel at commercial break to something else and checking something else out. I'm happy to be that, So
I think that's a really good point.
I think that's a good thing about Twitch.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with, we have some mutual friends that are very prolific on Twitch, right? And they are streaming 4 or 5 nights a week. And it's like, well, I don't want to step on their toes, but like also their toes are everywhere, man. Your feet are too big. So how do I walk through here without stepping on your toes, And so I think that's like, I think that's a great call out that like, you know what? People are going to flip around. So we are at an hour and 2 minutes of hanging out here, Rob. I want to toss it to you to give some plugs, to give some last minute advice, to try and land this insane tangent of a bird here. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time here today. This has been awesome.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And really excited for Dragon Con. I know I made it weird there when I was asking about how's this year going to be, but the panels are going to be awesome. Like you said, like the best part of last year was the fact that there was still all that incredible information and collaboration and, panels with diverse voices and stuff. And the good news is that's all going to be there this year too. And so, that's the part we really appreciate as content creators. If you want to follow me though, yay, thank you. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rob Roberts. It's probably the best place to do that. I love Twitter. I'm on it way too much. If you would like to follow my show, check out Orange Lounge Radio on all your big podcasting apps, such as like Spotify or iTunes, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Check out Orange Lounge Radio. We're just not on Stitcher because something happened and I'm not a fan of Stitcher. And then check out the Voice Geeks Network at vognetwork.com with other great shows, including the Bobby Black Wolf Show, Anime Jam Session, British Invaders, lots of great shows there. And follow on Twitch twitch.tv/VOG network. We will be live later today talking about the Microsoft and Bethesda press conference going on for E3, digital event, I suppose. And then later tonight, episode number 872, I lost count, I think it's 872 of Orange Lounge Radio live tonight at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern.
Awesome. Thank you again, Rob. And we will be back in 2 weeks. Our next guest here, let me pull this up, is going to be Hammond Chamberlain. Hammond Chamberlain of Beyond the Playlist, Soundography, a lot of other things. He's another of the kind of long-time podcasters here, so I'm super excited to get to talk to him then. Tune in with us 2 weeks from now. If you had fun hanging out today, tell your friends to check us out in a couple of weeks with their morning coffee. Share the VOD when it hits YouTube, and invite everybody to follow the channel here, DC Digital Media. As we get closer to DragonCon 2021, we'll be doing more stuff to hype up everybody for the con. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us this morning. Also, please remember to check out dragoncon.org/about/charity for information on DragonCon's 2021 designated charity partner, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. Through one-to-one mentoring, BBB SMA helps at-risk youth discover their full potential, succeed academically, build confidence, and develop skills that will lead to increased economic mobility. Thank you all so much. This has been awesome. Rob, again, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here and kind of dip my big toe back into the DragonCon, stuff. We could get that whole awkward, like, hey, Mike, it's been a year, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's good to catch up. I will be wearing my "Hug Me Like Crazy" sticker at DragonCon, Rob. If you are uncomfortable with that, let me know. I'll just elbow bump you or do one of the Demolition Man style greetings where we don't touch.
I know you're vaccinated, so I'm fine. We're good.
Hell yeah, we're gonna embrace so hard. Anybody else that sees us at con, come up, tell us. Thank you all so much. We'll see you soon.